Hello everyone, Brian Zeman here with MyFedUniversity, and welcome to this video segment. Here at MyFedUniversity, we are all about educating the federal employee. And oftentimes we get a lot of questions regarding the federal employees retirement system, otherwise known as FERS. So today I wanted to do a short educational video to talk to you about some of the basic information around federal employees retirement system, primarily some of the different components, some of the different types of retirements under FERS, and also some eligibility requirements. And we'll do some follow-on episodes to talk about what constitutes creditable service, a term you'll hear a lot, how your FERS annuity is computed, as well as some possible reductions that can affect your annuity. So let's jump into our first topic, the basics of the federal employees retirement system. For those of you who have been in the government for a while, you'll probably remember the old civil service retirement system, or the CSRS, which was established in the 1920s, and it covered those federal employees that were hired prior to January 1st, 1984. So it went back a ways. Well, FERS replaced that. FERS became effective on January 1st, 1987, as a result of the Social Security Amendment Act of 1983, and it covers all employees hired on or after January 1st, 1984. And the FERS basic benefit plan, the FERS retirement, is comprised of three parts. And you'll often hear this referred to as the three legs of a stool. And it's very important to remember that these are three separate components. So those three components, first being the FERS basic benefit plan, or your basic annuity. This is a defined benefit pension plan that's funded by the federal government and you, the federal employee. The amount of the annuity is determined and calculated using three factors. Is using your highest 3 consecutive years of pay, often referred to as the high 3, and your number of years of creditable service to include any unused sick leave, and then a multiplier. The TSP, or the Thrift Savings Plan, that is a defined contribution plan similar to most 401ks, which allows you, the employee, to contribute and invest in a variety of funds. Nice thing with that, you get agency matching contributions. And I often would tell employees the TSP is truly the workhorse of the federal employees retirement system. The last component is the Social Security. And as most of us know, Social Security is a federal program that provides a benefit based on your earnings history and with contributions deducted from your payroll. And it operates the same as covered employees in the private sector. So as mentioned earlier, these three components form that three-legged stool, with each leg designed to provide income security in retirement. Before we get into some of the eligibility requirements and the different types of retirements under FERS, it's important to note that there are three categories of the federal employees retirement system that you should know about. Now, all three of these are essentially the same pension program, but they differ significantly in the employee contribution rates due to legislation that was passed in 2012. So the three categories are the FERS Legacy Program, or what we'll refer to as the FERS Legacy, the FERS Revised Annuity Employee, or FERS-RAE, and the FERS Further Revised Annuity Employee, which we'll refer to as FERS-FRAE. It's important to note that both RAE and FRAE, these were created to increase the federal employee contributions to the retirement system. Now, all three have identical benefits, such as how your annuity is calculated. That is the same for all three. And all three systems also include the same employee matched TSP contributions. But really the big difference is they have drastically different employee contribution rates based upon your hire date. So looking at the slide, you'll see that FERS-RAE, that became effective on January 1st, 2013. And so that applies to employees first hired or rehired in 2013 with fewer than 5 years of service prior to 2013. And you'll see that the FERS-RAE employees, they contribute 3.1% of their pay to the FERS pension plan compared to the 0.8% of the legacy program. All right, so a year later, FERS-FRAE became effective. And that took place on January 1st, 2014. And now that applies to employees hired or rehired in 2014 or later without the 5 years of prior service. And for FERS-FRAE employees, they have to contribute 4.4% of their pay to the FERS pension plan. Now, there are some special exceptions for this, special category employees such as law enforcement and firefighters, but these rates apply to most federal employees. So as you can see here, both the FERS-RAE and the FERS-FRAE amounts are much higher than the 0.8% paid by the pre-2013 legacy employees. So these increased contributions for FRAE and FRAE, they do not increase your retirement annuity, unfortunately. They only represent a higher cost to you, the employee. And as you can see with each of the categories, there's no difference in the amount of Social Security or Medicare tax that is withheld from your pay. That is the same 7.65% as with any other earnings. So let's talk about some different types of retirements under FERS and some of the eligibility requirements for each. So there are 4 primary types of retirement in the FERS Basic Benefit Plan. The first one is called a voluntary retirement. And I put in parentheses because you'll hear this called an immediate retirement, you'll hear it called a regular retirement, or an optional retirement. All of those terms are synonymous for a voluntary retirement. We'll also talk about an early retirement and some of the types of those, an optional or discontinued service. We'll talk a little bit about deferred retirement and a little bit about disability retirement. And it's important to know that eligibility is always determined by your age and the number of years of creditable service. And in some cases, or in most cases, you must have reached what's called your MRA, minimum retirement age, in order to receive retirement benefits. And your MRA, depending on your year of birth, ranges from age 55 to 57. And you'll see the chart on the right-hand side of this slide that depicts the year that you were born and what your MRA would be. So it's very important for you to know what your MRA is, as it will be needed as you look at some of the different types of retirement. So first, let's talk about what is a voluntary retirement. Well, a voluntary or an immediate retirement benefit, that is one that begins within 30 days after your separation. So you apply for retirement, you have your effective date. 30 days after, if you meet the eligibility requirements, your voluntary retirement annuity will kick in. So if you meet one of the following sets of age and service requirements, you are entitled to an immediate retirement benefit. So those eligibility are if you're age 62 years of age with at least 5 years of creditable service, or if you're age 60 with 20 years of creditable service, or as we referred to earlier, you've reached your minimum retirement age with at least 30 years of creditable service. Those are the most popular options under voluntary retirement. Now, there is one last option, your MRA with at least 10 years of creditable service. But please note that that comes with a reduced benefit. If you retire at your MRA with at least 10 years of service, but less than 30 years of service, your benefit will be reduced by 5% a year for each year you are under age 62, unless you have 20 years of service, and that benefit starts when you reach age 60 or later. So as you can see, there can be a big penalty for using this option, the MRA with 10. Next, let's talk a little bit about what early retirement is. So there's the early optional. And for early optional, OPM must have determined that your agency is undergoing a major reorganization, a reduction in force, transfer of function. And the key thing on this is OPM must have approved your agency for a voluntary early retirement authority, otherwise known as VERA. We saw this over the past year where most agencies were giving a VERA authority and many people took the early retirement. There's also a component under early retirement called discontinued service. And this would be in the event if your separation is involuntarily, meaning that you were separated against your will and without your consent, and it cannot be for misconduct or delinquency. So a little bit about early retirement. So to be eligible for early retirement, you must meet one of the following requirements. You have to be at least age 50 with a minimum of 20 years of creditable service, or you can be any age if you have at least 25 years of creditable service. Next, we'll talk about deferred retirement. Now, deferred retirement, that is for former federal employees who were not entitled to an annuity when they separated from federal service, but will become entitled to an annuity after reaching a certain age. And to be eligible for this, you must have completed at least 5 years of creditable civilian service. And most importantly, you must not have taken a refund of your retirement deductions when you separated from your service. So the eligibility requirements for that, if you're age 62 with at least 5 years of creditable service, you can become eligible for a deferred retirement when you reach your MRA if you had 30 years of creditable service. And lastly, again, your MRA with at least 10 years of creditable service. Please note that, again, that MRA with 10 does come with a reduced benefit. So if you retire at the MRA with at least 10 years, but less than 30 years of service, your benefit will be reduced again by that 5% a year for each year you were under 62, unless you have 20 years of service and your benefit starts when you reach age 60 or later. So that one can be a little confusing. Lastly, I just wanted to give you the eligibility requirements for a disability retirement. This one comes with several special requirements. First of all, you must have become disabled while employed in a position subject to FERS because of a disease or injury, and you're unable to perform useful and efficient service in your current position, and the disability must be expected to last at least 1 year. One of the requirements for your agency is they must certify that they are unable to accommodate your disability medical condition in your present position, and that it has considered you for any vacant position in the same agency at the same grade and pay level, and within the same commuting area for which you are qualified or for reassignment. So the eligibility requirements for a disability, there are no age requirement. You can be any age, and you must have at least 18 months of creditable service. Please note that if you're filing for a FERS disability retirement, the FERS employees are also required to file for Social Security disability as well. So I hope that information was helpful. That was a brief discussion about some basics of the FERS retirement system. So I know a lot of this information can be confusing. So if you like this video, please like and subscribe. And if there's anything MyFedUniversity can do to help you, please reach out to us. Reach out to us on our website at MyFedUniversity.com. We'd be glad to discuss your federal benefits and help you in any way we can. Take care, everyone.